Hi, welcome to Change Artists. We're live from Vevey, Switzerland, where we're at the headquarters of the food and beverage giant Nestle. Our guests today are Peter Brabeck, who is the CEO of Nestle. Peter, welcome.
Thank you.
As well as Chris Johnson, who is the Deputy Executive Vice President and has led a major IT transformation project here. Welcome, Chris.
Thank you.
Peter, let's start with a little bit of a Nestle background, because Nestle is such a big company, and it probably touches people's lives in ways they're not even sure about today. Talk a little bit about what the company is involved with right now, what are the challenges the company is dealing with, and where do you see Nestle heading as an organization?
Well, John, I think every CEO basically has to be constantly being preoccupied how he or she can add value to its consumers. I think that's the most important one. And by doing well, he will add value to its shareholders and to its other stakeholders around. So my main preoccupation is all the time, how can I add a little bit more value to my consumers? Now, we are a 140-year company that started as an agro-industry. If you look at the value chain of an agro-industry, you will see that raw materials were very important, of course. This makes a big part of your value chain. Then comes technological processes in order to transform these products. And then you have marketing and distribution. Now, if I look forward, I think we will have to add to this value chain a very important part. And this is basically research and development and IT. And the reason for that is that our consumers are realizing that nutrition is the door opener for health and for well-being. Mm-hmm. And nutrition is more and more the result of very fundamental research and then very strong development. And on the other hand, what you also have is that you have to find a way how you can run efficiently a very complex company. And I think today you can only do it by using very creatively IT.
Well, let's talk about that, because that's really, Chris, at the heart of the GLOBE, which is the Global Business Excellence Project. Mm-hmm. I want to talk a little bit about your background, because you're a non-IT person leading this transformation. You came up through sales and marketing. Yeah. You've worked really all over the globe for Nestle, Japan, France, Taiwan, here, United States. How did you get involved with this GLOBE project? And tell us what you're trying to do with the GLOBE project.
Well, the GLOBE project overall is really not an ISIT project. I think if it was, I don't think he would have chosen me to run it, because certainly that's not my background or my expertise. It's really a business initiative. And maybe to explain it a little bit, GLOBE stands for Global Business Excellence. And it was basically created 6 years ago by Peter Brabeck and the executive board as a way to allow Nestle to leverage our size better, to leverage our size as a strength, and also to figure out a way that we can take complexity, because we're a complex organization. We sell a wide range of products in virtually every geography of the world, through every channel we can, and to try to operate and with efficiency, which is something that our competition has not been able to get a grip on. So in order to do that, this program was established with three very simple objectives. Not simple to do, but very simple to remember. The first one was to implement harmonized best practices. So in other words, to take the best ways of doing business around the Nestle world and share them. Very, very, very basic. The second one, which is not very sexy but very important, is to standardize our data and our approach to data management, to treat data as a corporate asset. And the third one is to then support this and enforce it through standardized systems and technology. Right. So it's harmonized best practices, standardized data, standardized systems. And I could say that probably almost everybody in the Nestle world can recount that these three objectives. And that's what we've been focusing on in the past 5 years, really, is designing the systems, defining the processes, and now implementing them. And we're at a stage now where we've basically implemented processes, data, and systems across around 80% of our global operations. So we have today about 100,000 users, over 500 factories, 400 distribution centers, and 300 sales offices, at least by the end of this year. running on Globe. And the next challenge then is how do we leverage this great investment that we put in?
Well, let's talk a little bit about that. One of the things that I was struck with in a discussion I read with you was that you described Globe as a single source of truth for the company. What did you mean by that?
Well, it goes back to that second objective. When we talk about data standards, data management, we didn't before Globe have, for example, a standard way to code our leading customers. Carrefour was coded in different markets in which we supplied that customer. The same for a lot of our key materials. And we spent a lot of time in the markets and even here at the center trying to sift through and find out, how much did we really sell to Carrefour? How much does this vendor do with us?
Right.
And this allows us now basically to have a data platform which is clean. And the first thing that we had to do before we could do this is establish standards, one, and the second was to clean up the data standards we had in this company. Because quite honestly, we thought before the Globe program that we had 6 million customers, vendors, and materials. At least that's what was in our systems. After going through the Globe exercise of cleansing, we realized that, well, about 2/3 of that was duplicate, obsolete, or just plain wrong.
Right.
And so getting to that truth is very important. And only if you have that database, clean database, are you able then to really leverage it in decision support in other areas.
That makes sense. So, Peter, I was struck by a comment that you made that while Nestle is a giant global company, 200 countries around the world, your customers and your business are all local, and that makes business very complex, and that this project is really aimed at driving that complexity out.
You see, first of all, we were running this company like a fantastic super tanker, 500,000 tons tanker.
Yeah.
And very successfully so. However, if you want to continue the growth, you come to certain limits. And we had to find a way how we can break up this super tanker into an agile fleet of different boats, destroyers, fast boats,
right,
carriers, and things like this. And really the idea about Globe came anecdotically from a completely different experience. I was invited by the Chilean Navy to participate on one of their maneuvers. And I was invited to the Admiral's boat. And I was impressed how the Admiral in his room was able to use the different ships of the fleet
right,
for different attacks. There was an island to be attacked, it would take a smaller unit, a carrier, there would be a big bombing of something, you would do something different. Every single boat had its own crew, its own mission. All of them came back in order to supply themselves from one common fuel boat, one common munition boat, and one common food boat. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And this idea about an agile fleet and the generating demand, but having leveraged huge supply chains behind you was basically the basic idea. Now what you have to do in order to be able to do that, of course, is you have to have the three things that Chris was just mentioning. You have to understand what is happening on each one of the boat, which is basically the common business practices. You have to have a centralized data management. And in order to manage all this information flow that you have to have one common IT platform.
right.
So very simple, those three objectives of Globe is just the enabling of a big transformation of the organization.
So that it sounds simple, but let's talk about the reality of it, because people say, oh, this is the next big thing to come down from headquarters. If we ignore it long enough, maybe it'll go away. Chris, how did you get people on board? I mean, when you talk about things like best practices, very political topic. My best practices are best.
Absolutely.
He thinks his best practice. How did you get people on board?
Well, to be honest with you, I wasn't really sure we'd be able to pull that off.
Yeah.
I mean, a great idea to have an idea of a harmonized set of practices, but clearly I could imagine, Germany not necessarily accepting what Chile or Argentina or Peru would want. And I think what we did, and there's different ways you could do this, but we chose a way. You can either go on the outside and have consultants or people who define the best practices for you, look externally. You can look at your central head office and have the people design it here and then push it down to the markets. Or what we did, which is different, was we invited basically people from the markets, employees from the markets to come here. And in 2001, for about a period of a year, we had over 300 people come from 40 different countries. which was a bit of a culture shock here on
Right,
Vevey
I'll
for all the
bet.
people to descend, all within really a couple weeks' time of arriving. And they debated and argued and so on. And I remember I had initially some difficulty in getting markets to send people. But I went on the road then and explained, especially to the bigger markets, I said, look, this is what we're doing. We're defining these harmonized best practices, and then we're going to configure our software with them. So you have a choice. You can either be part of the game and help shape what we're doing, or you can let the others do it for you. And then boom, within really a couple of months' time, we had 300 people on board.
Yeah.
But that's how we did it. And these were people, you know, not at the highest levels of the organization. These were the people who actually worked every day, whether it be in sales and marketing, manufacturing, HR, you know, all different parts of the group. And that's also what makes our program a little bit different.
Yeah, and I understand that you actually made business units give you the kind of people that they don't normally give up to these kind of projects. You made them give you the people that they would really miss
Absolutely.
working on your project.
Absolutely. If somebody was too easily volunteered to me, I was very suspicious and
anyway.
generally turned them down.
Yeah.
That's true.
Now, I understand that there was a dramatic moment where you actually offered folks your job
That's
in
right,
order
yes.
to change some thinking
Yes,
about this.
that was early on in the program. In fact, one of the first market managers meetings where we invite all of the market managers from around the world to come every 18 months or 2 years. And this was very early in the program, and we did that. And Peter allotted a day after this meeting to have a Globe Day. And Peter actually didn't come to that meeting on purpose, because we knew that there was a certain amount of tension and concern, and it was a chance to let it out. And so that certainly worked. In the morning of that meeting, it was just nonstop questioning, challenging, and worse. And I remember it reached the point at lunchtime where I figured, what am I going to do here? Because I was worried that this thing was getting a bit out of control. A bit of challenge is fine, but So I remember I came in after lunch, and they were sitting there looking at me like this, and I stood up, and I thought maybe they thought I was going to give up or walk away, and I said, okay, guys, I got a question for you now, because they were asking me questions all day. I said, how many of you want my job? And they all sat on their hands, of course, which I expected. And I said, okay, that's fine, I understand that, but if Globe doesn't work, I get fired. And I said, I know you don't care, and of course they didn't care.
Some of them may have been wishing for that.
Exactly, some of them may be wishing that. But I said, hey, but if I get fired, you know what's going to happen? I get fired, and Peter Brabeck's going to pick one of you to take my place. And so they laughed, and that was a bit of an icebreaker, and not that sold everybody, but at least then it was sort of a changing perspective that, look, guys, we're in this thing together, and it's your job to make it work. And that's the secret to Globe. They own it. It's these market heads, it's the people in the market. It's not Peter's project, it's not my project. It's our employees'
But I will argue to some extent, because it is Peter's project. Peter, you've made this part of your legacy here at Nestle.
Yeah.
And there may have been times where your voice needed really to be lent to this process to make sure people were behind it. Talk a little bit about that. How did you show your commitment to this project?
Well, I think first of all we let this project evolve first out of a vision, out of objectives that we have set, and then evolve it within the executive board. And it took quite some time. I mean, this is not that we started in the year 2000 with this. We started about 2 years before, talking about it and starting to form it and shape it. And it was really in the year 2000 that we finally could come to an agreement on the executive board that this was a necessary step. There was not everybody was on board. Many people feared that this would lead basically to centralization of decision making, whereas we, frankly speaking, in my vision, it was in order to allow more decentralization.
Right.
But you have to go through a certain time where when you want to manage data centrally, you have to centralize this part. But this is not decision making. This is just data management, which we centralized. The whole idea was always decentralization, but some people didn't see that. I think the next step was very critical. First of all, to find the right person. And I had met Chris before in his different functions, and I was always impressed because he was a change artist already at that time. He did many things differently when he was out in the markets. And he was not an IT guy, which I thought was extremely important for the project. Because if it was being seen as an IT project, I think we would have got the wrong people on the boat. We had to show very clearly through the leadership that this is not an IT project. And the second thing was that I appointed him to be a member of the executive board. And of course, this has never happened before. First of all, at his very tender age, to be a member of the executive board of Nestle was already a rupture with the past. But secondly, that you would take a project and make them member of a board was not obvious. But it helped us also that every single executive board meeting we had,